Howdy, and welcome to the White Hat Law Show with Warren Nord, where we cover a mix of current events, politics, and the law. Take it away, Warren.
Hi, I'm Warren Nord, and welcome to White Hat Law. Today we're going to be talking about election law and Texas and the First Amendment and how to do it wrong and how to do it right. And with me today will be two people who have experienced institutions that are doing it wrong. Amy Hedke, who has had experience with the Waxahachie ISD, is here in the studio with me. And Matt Langston is on the phone, and he's had experience with the city of McKinney recently. And their litigation, I think, is just about to wrap up, or at least one stage of it. So before we talk about the individual situations and how it's done wrong, let's just talk about the theory of how this is supposed to work. In theory, you set up polling sites in generally public locations, and the election judge who is running the particular polling site has really pretty powerful powers. He's the equivalent of a district judge in his little realm. And his little realm is the polling site and 100 feet arc from the door. Now I'm just talking about the normal setup. There are little exceptions here and there. And so outside that 100 feet, he really can't control anything. Now, a lot of cities have happened upon this law, and I'm just going to read it for you, and then maybe it'll pop up in the screen if things are going right. And this is from the Election Code. This is Chapter 61, Section 61.003 of the Election Code. And it says, a person commits an offense if during the voting period and within 100 feet of an outside door through which a voter may enter the building in which a polling place is located, the person loiters or electioneers for or against a candidate, measure, or political party. So we just talked about it. You commit an offense if you are messing with people within the 100 feet. And the election judge has a lot to say about that. That's another part of the law. Now, this is the fun part. The entity that owns or controls a public building being used as a polling place, school district, city hall, something like that, may not at any time during the voting period prohibit electioneering on the premises outside of the area described, outside the 100 foot. But, and here's the but, may enact reasonable regulations concerning the time, place, and manner of electioneering. So, to summarize that, the election judge has ultimate power within the 100 feet. The host of the polling site is not supposed to interfere outside the 100 feet, but they can enact reasonable regulations to make sure that you don't have chaos. And I can imagine situations where that's real. You got a dozen people that are running for an office. You have one sidewalk that's going to a polling location, and so it's kind of a gauntlet that you've got to run through to get to people, and they're maybe messing with the sidewalk, so you can't really control the chaos. And I can see the host saying, "We're going to mark off spots for everybody. We're going to make something less chaotic." So in theory, this is not a bad deal. The problem is that various organizations, all of them government institutions, have decided that they're going to interpret reasonable regulations into whatever we feel like, and that happens to benefit what we, the people who own the facility, like. And so what they're doing is they're creating what I call a speech cage. And both of the people that are visiting with us today are going to talk about a speech cage. And so I'm just going to show a picture of one. And this one's in the Waxahachie ISD. And this is a speech cage. And they're painted corners. They paint 20-foot corners so that you can show where the square is, and you're supposed to stand in this one little square, irrespective of how far the voters are. And these squares are usually set up so that you really can't contact the voters. What people want to do is when you're electioneering, you want to be available for the person to walk up and talk to you. You want to be able to hand the person propaganda and talk about the issue. Now, what you'll hear is complaints from various entities. Usually it's people who are against your side who will say, "Oh, they're coming, they're harassing me in my car, they're yelling and screaming at me, they're calling me names, they're being rude." And that's supposed to be an excuse for restricting free speech. which has never really been a good excuse for restricting free speech. And so then you have to have lawsuits to stop this. And so today we're talking about 2 lawsuits. So when we come back in just a minute, we're going to talk to Matt Langston, who had a start, finish, and we're just about finished with that first stage of their litigation. And he'll tell us how that worked in just a minute.
Whoa, hang on to your hat, folks. More with Warren Nord when we get back. Y'all are back here listening to the White Hat Law Show. Warren, who do we have up next?
All right, welcome back. And now we're going to hear the story of the city of McKinney and its excitement concerning Matt Langston. Matt was together with a number of other people, had some adventures. So Matt, you're here with us, right?
Yes, appreciate you having me on.
It's a pleasure. Give us a rundown of what happened in your saga.
Sure. So I was with a group of campaign workers and volunteers in the city of McKinney, and we were out. Our group was out advocating on behalf of Philip Huffines, who was running for the state senate. One of the issues that we ran into with the city is that they had put a free speech zone out in a field about 500 to 600 yards away from the election site, well outside the 100-foot zone. And on the first day of early voting, we had volunteers show up, and code enforcement came out, and they said that they must move to this area, which was basically in a swamp, and that's where they could electioneer. You couldn't talk to people. There wasn't any way to approach voters who were looking for additional information or voter guides that were being passed out. And so I got a phone call from one of the volunteers. I said, well, we are well within our right to be in just outside the 100-foot buffer zone. And so we asked them to stand out there. The first day they called, in addition to code enforcement, they called the police. We experienced, the entire campaign experienced every day of early voting, code enforcement or police coming out and saying that if we did not adhere to what they were asking us to do, then they would give us a citation and go so far as to arrest the campaign workers.
Now, Matt, did you get, let me break in, did you get,
Sure.
What was the first notice of this new rule? Was it passed by somebody?
So what the first notice that the campaign got was when we actually went out there on early voting. So the city claimed that it mailed all the campaign's information on this new free speech zone, but the campaigns that we interacted with and then our own personal campaign never received that notification. So it was just when we were present that they notified that there was going to be a change in their city ordinance. The city had passed this ordinance back, it was in October of 2017. So it would have been, I guess, a little less than 4 months from the election day.
Now, I have not seen the ordinance that the city of McKinney passed, but did it actually say this is where you're going to put your speech cage? Or did it say that some administrator somewhere was going to make a reasonable location and that administrator was going to put it where it felt was appropriate?
Sure. The ordinance was vague as far as the location. And so they really did leave it up to the local administrators to put it wherever, I guess, they deemed fit.
Okay. Yeah, so the reason I ask is, of course, if you say we're going to do this law, and then you challenge it at that point, well, you don't know how that law is going to be implemented. So a lot of courts will say, well, we don't know how that's going to be implemented. We don't know it's even going to be enforced, so we're not going to get involved. Right. So, yes.
And even with the campaigns that we were interacting with in our own campaign, none of us really expected to, there's a lot of voting locations where they will do something that's a little outside the 100-foot zone, but nothing as, I guess I'd go so far to say, as egregious as, out in a field in the middle of nowhere. And so it was a little bit of a surprise for all of us when we went out there. But they pressed all the campaign workers. A lot of campaigns just left the area because they deemed it was impossible to talk to voters. but we were one of the few people the few campaigns that stuck it out all through the early vote. On Friday before Election Day, so the last day of early voting, the city of McKinney sent out 3 or 4 enforcement officers. They also sent out some police officers as well on that day, and they started writing tickets. It was around 4:00 in the afternoon that they decided to proceed after they had threatened us all throughout the early vote. They decided to proceed with that next step of action, and so they started writing tickets to the people that were out there. I got a phone call. I was off-site, and so I drove out there. It was very arbitrary how the enforcement officers were, or the enforcement code officers were writing the tickets. So you had, they claimed that if you were stopping or interacting with a voter, then that's where they would write you a citation. They decided to kind of pick and choose, because we pressed it with them to see if they were really going to act and kick us off the side, or even go so far as to arrest us. And so it ended up at least 5 of our campaign team, which were all involved in the suit, 5 of our campaign team received citations, including one of the guys who, as I was walking up as a supporter of the campaign, handed me a push card, handed me a piece of literature, and the code enforcement officer handed him a citation right there in front of us as I got onto that site.
Okay, so was this at so let me break in. Was this at the Gary Library, or which site was this?
This was it was the John and Judy Gay Library at the city of McKinney.
Okay, so you're at a library now. Is this traditionally a place where polling has occurred, or do you know?
Correct. This I believe they have a polling location almost every election at that spot.
And if you just looked at the 100-foot arc around the polling site, you'd find out some of the parking lot is within the 100 feet, some is without, and then you just have to do what you can to interact. Is that the normal setup?
That is the normal setup. That is correct. And so you don't catch every voter coming in.
Right.
And quite honestly, most every campaign is very respectful. If the voter walks, kind of does a wide swing around you, nobody chases them down. And so we never had a problem where voters were complaining about harassment at this location.
Yeah, it's been my experience that they can always find somebody who will complain about harassment. If it's just the way it works. It's a game people play. Okay, so you guys received some citations, and then how'd the suit come about?
Yeah, so we immediately went and asked for a temporary injunction, so we could ensure that we would be able to campaign on Election Day at that location. The judge granted that injunction.
And that's in state district court, right? That was in state district court?
It was.
Okay.
State district court.
Okay, so that's in Collin County. Okay. It's good.
Yes. And so they issued a temporary injunction, and then the city left us alone on Election Day, and then set a date where our case would go before the judge to see if the injunction would become permanent. In early April, we went before the judge. He heard both sides of the case and granted the injunction to become permanent for our side. So the Huff Hines campaign in this particular suit, they said that we were well within our right, and the city had no constitutional authority they had no authority to pass a city ordinance going outside state law or constitutional law.
Yeah, Matt, let me make sure I understand. Now, so you got the way it works, of course, is you get a TRO, a temporary restraining order, and then you get a temporary injunction where both sides have a chance to talk within 2 weeks. And at the end, you get a permanent injunction if the judge is convinced that you were just super right, and there's no real play for the other side. So you got the TRO immediately, and then you got, did you go straight from a TRO to a permanent injunction, or how'd that work?
My understanding is we did go from a temporary restraining order to a permanent injunction.
It's very odd.
Then they set a trial date for September 4th.
Okay, so you got a temporary injunction.
This was in early April.
Yes, okay. Okay.
So the trial date was set. The city has lawyered up, but before they made the decision to carry out the trial, the city council met and voted unanimously, and this was in early May of this month. So they voted unanimously, a 5-0 vote to repeal the electioneering ordinance.
Sweet.
And so that is for us, for anyone involved in campaigns, or even if you have an interest in freedom of speech and the ability to have free speech in the country, this is a big case because it is rare that a city will repeal an ordinance of this size.
Absolutely. No, that's a big win. Okay, so is your case is moot now, right? I mean, it's been dismissed because you won?
So it is. We have the ability to file a civil rights case.
Right.
There's several cases of a recent history that we can move forward as a civil rights case. I don't know if we are going to do that, but we've had. We think this case we'll be able to use it with other cities throughout the state of Texas to go in and help repeal these ordinances statewide. And so we'll be making some decisions over the next couple of weeks or month of how we're going to proceed forward. But the legal team and the five of us that were involved in this case, we see it as a win for us, and that's been a significant part of this fight.
Well, certainly it's a win for freedom of speech and just what we've always we fought against the British for just this kind of thing, is handing out pamphlets. All right, so there's still the option. So the case is still alive, and you have an option of filing or either adding claims for civil rights violations, or calling this case, go ahead and dismissing this case and filing a federal case for the civil rights violations. And it sounds as though you guys have not quite made a decision on what you're going to do there.
That's correct.
Okay.
That is right.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. Now, of course, the next case we're going to hear about is a more temporary issue where school districts are passing. School districts don't pass laws; they pass regulations on various things they can control. So here we had the case in McKinney. You have a city ordinance that was passed, and it was going on and it was continuing, and so they got that have that repealed, facing a judge that was going to kill it off anyway. So they saw the writing on the wall and decided to do the honorable thing as quickly as possible, or the least dishonorable thing as fast as possible. So that's good. I appreciate that story, Matt. I want you to hold on to this for a minute. We're going to come back after this break, and then we're going to talk to Amy Hetke and the story of Waxahachie ISD, which is a little different story, and we're still in the middle of that. So we'll be right back.
Whoa, hang on to your hat, folks. More with Warren Nord when we get back. Y'all are back here listening to the White Hat Law Show. Warren, who do we have up next?
Welcome back. Okay, we just got through hearing the story of the city of McKinney and their city council who saw the writing on the wall and withdrew that ordinance. In this next case, we'll talk about Waxahachie ISD, and we have Amy to talk to us about that. Now, Waxahachie passed a resolution that only impacted early voting, and that's all. Is that right, Amy?
Yes.
Oh, welcome to the show, by the way. Yeah.
Hello.
All right. So Amy is kind of famous or infamous, depending on who you're talking to, as a warrior against bonds. Give us a little a 1-minute introduction on your bond fighting and previous to this in Waxahachie too.
Sure. So when I got involved with fighting bonds about 5 years ago, and you get started on with you lose some, then you get better, you start winning. So our first big win was in Crowley, and then we killed one in Red Oak, $17 million bond in Red Oak, $74 million school bond in Red Oak. Then we moved into Waxahachie and took out their $78 million bond.
That was last year, right?
Last year in November, yes. These are all, the last 2-3 years, actually.
Right.
So after taking out their $78 million school bond, by successfully using electioneering on their rolling polling facilities.
Now, you use the phrase rolling polling.
Oh, yes.
What is rolling polling for people who don't know?
Rolling polling is where the school districts decide to use a different school each day as a polling location.
During early voting?
During early voting.
Okay.
In Waxahachie, it's 2 schools each day. 2 different schools each day, and the district conveniently schedules parent-teacher conferences on the day that the school is a polling location or a program or something like that to drag the parents to the schools and, oh, while you're here, go make sure you go vote.
Man, that is just so evil. That is amazing. Okay, so we established that you hate public debt for taxpayers, and that's good. And rolling polling, and I guess rolling polling is not in and of itself evil. I mean, you have a smaller team, right? So you don't have to hire as many people, and you still cover all the locations. But and they always have the admin building. Is always early.
Yeah,
voting.
and honestly, in Waxahachie, you don't have that many people that are voting at the rolling polling locations. It'd be crazy easy for the admin building and the elections office to take care of the people that are voting at the rolling polling locations. It's a very strategic method that there's already studies that have shown that kind of voting actually benefits a bond passing.
Wow.
Like a 5% increase
Okay.
or something
Well, I
like
mean, it
that.
makes sense because you can encourage visitors who are predisposed to support the bond package because they're unknowledgeable voters who just say this is going to help my school because more money is always better, right? And so,
but you're right. It's not necessarily evil in and of itself because when you have people that understand how electioneering works, we electioneered, we knew what the rules were, we worked the rules, we worked them very well, and we basically beat them at their own game.
and that was last November.
That was, this past November.
$80 million plus.
$78 million.
$78 million. Okay.
In principle alone.
and so the school district learned, and what they do?
So this time they decided to pretty much eliminate our ability to electioneer by setting up these 20-foot by 20-foot square speech cages on the ground.
Okay, I'm going to show the picture. Yes, here's a picture of a speech cage.
Yes.
And I don't know if you can see and you see that building that's 100 plus yards away.
Yeah.
So the rule says you have to stand in this.
Inside. We are not allowed to place, hold, or erect a sign outside of that cage. You can see the invisible walls. You step over the line and you are breaking their regulations and police will be called.
And it's not a law that you're breaking. It's a
regulation technically with the force of law.
Right, because police will come and arrest you or give you a citation if you are.
Yes.
So I mean, I kind of look at this as kind of a criminal trespass. It's saying we allow you to stand here, we don't allow you to stand here.
Yes, and that's actually exactly what they charged me with on the first day of early voting.
Is that right?
Yes. On the first day of early voting, I was standing outside the 100-foot marker, outside of the free speech cage, and the cops were called. And they said, Amy, go get in the box. And I said, no. And so they said, we're going to have to write you a ticket. So they wrote me a ticket. And this first Monday, there was trespass prohibited. So it was a trespass charge.
Well, there
The
you
second
go.
day, though, they decided to switch it up. Matt used the word arbitrary, and that's exactly what's going on here. They kind of pick and choose what they're going to enforce and how they're going to enforce it. So on Tuesday, TJ, Fabi, and I were at the second location, and they gave us tickets for violating Election Code 61003.
Right.
So 2 different charges.
For the same behavior, but
same
that's
behavior,
okay. It'll be
yes.
easier to beat that way. Okay, and so, so this was a resolution passed by the school district, right?
Yes.
And so again, it's the school district, but in this case, the resolution did talk about where the cages would be, or did it not?
It did. The regulations had an amendment that showed an approximate
An
location
attachment,
of
yeah.
all facilities and where the speech cages would approximately be located.
So this is one of them, and this one is Clift Elementary. So, and this is the same thing, right? This is Clift,
Yes.
This is Clift Elementary. So you really can't tell by looking at these how unreasonable they are. And one of the problems we have here is that the people that are doing this are the city council people or somebody that works with the city council. Or no, I'm sorry,
School
the city
board.
council, the school board. And that's not the people who set up the polling sites. So you have a group of people that are setting up rules for where these pages are going to be, not talking to the precinct judges.
Well, allegedly, the elections department chick signed off on this.
Is that right? I hadn't heard that.
I have not spoken with Jana, but
Okay, so you have, in this case, what we have is, I want to see if I can do this. Well, the picture we just showed, but here you have the voters that come in and they park over here. This is the building. They come here to vote. The free speech cage is up here. So people come in, they're not going to stop and talk to you. They're going to drive by and go back past this. And we have other examples. And of course, we filed a lawsuit, right? So you guys got a couple of citations. We finally got a lawsuit filed. And the judge came in and said, tell me what exactly is going on. So here's one. This is my favorite. The red box is where you're supposed to be electioneering. And Amy, help me out here.
yes,
Voters don't go here, right?
Correct.
This is like a kindergarten. So voters come in here, and they park along this parking lot, and they go in here. This is a gym where they vote.
correct.
All right, so they come in here to vote, and your free speech box, or your speech cage, as I like to call them, is around the corner, a couple hundred yards away.
You can't even see the voter entrance.
So how many voters would see you if you were in this box? Zero. And if you over here, yeah. Now this is the thing. The 100-foot box would take you right around here. If you put your 20-foot box right here, it would at least be less unreasonable. It'd be less unreasonable.
And actually, they did put a 20-foot box just outside the 100-foot mark, up close to that road. But there's a problem with the box that they put, because their whole purpose for these boxes was to increase safety, right? But they painted their box right next to a serious gas line.
And we could go through all of these. This is just another one. Where's the admin? Because the admin's kind of funny. This is not a very good picture. We'll see if we can get a better picture. You come in and you park. This is the main road. This is the parking lot for the Waxahachie ISD admin, right? And so they've got the box right here. People come in and they park in the parking lot here and they walk into the building. The 100-foot arc comes across here, and it actually goes into the free speech box, right?
Yes. The Waxahachie ISD apparently has a problem counting to 100.
Well, the real issue is they just didn't, right? So the problem is that you have multiple people that are setting these rules up, and they don't know what's important to the other side. So you get some administrator that says, yes, I'm going to make this free speech box right here, but then I'm going to, the polling site sets up where they're supposed to set up, and so that arc cuts right through the free speech box. So it's illegal for you to be in the free speech box,
Yes.
at least in part of it, doing this. And so you filed a lawsuit, and what happened from that?
Not a lot, unfortunately.
Well, we spent all day on Thursday trying to get a response. We had a hearing. Okay, I represented Amy in this case. We had a hearing that was started at, I arrived there at about 9:30 in the morning. We met with the judge for a little while. He said, you guys see if you can go work it out. So I met with the attorney for the school district. We went, we looked at all these sites, or we looked at some of these sites in their office. We came back, we had a hearing, and the judge said, this one at Turner, Is it Turner? Yeah, this one at Turner is beyond the pale, and I'm going to rule that this one is wrong, and you got to fix that.
I thought it was Felty.
Okay, I may be getting it wrong. Felty.
Maybe.
Feldy. Where's one's Feldy?
I think it was Felty where the speech cage is
Finley.
on the
Finley. And I've got it with a D, but that's not right. So this is another funny one too. And this one, voters come in and they drive in here. It's one way. Drive in, they park, they go vote, and then on their way out, they can wave hi to the people in the free speech cage. And so the school district says, hey, we'll move this over here. It really wasn't acceptable, but the judge said, well, I'm going to make them do that because that's wrong. And so that was done. But we never got a ruling, and I don't anticipate ever getting a ruling. But
if the judge wants to move the free speech cages, maybe he should run for school board.
That would be great. But, the problem is that judges don't really want to get involved in this, right? They all live and work in the same little societal bubble with these people that are school board members, and so they really don't want to get involved in these things, particularly when they have a plaintiff that's well known as, I'd say, an anarchist, close to it. Political
ideal.
Well, but a protagonist of against bond elections, and so it's just the way it goes. So he hasn't. It's been more than a week. We still don't have a hearing don't have a ruling from the judge. Of course, it's moot at this point. So but we should at least get a ruling so that we know we have there, and then we'll have have the fun of the damages. What happened? How's the voting turnout going?
Voting turnout was great because of our block walking efforts. We had a 13% turnout.
Wow.
We had 9.2% just in early voting alone because of our block walking. However, when we looked at the final results, we beat the bond in mail-in ballots. We beat the bond on Election Day, but we lost in early voting.
Wow.
So
basically because of this, it was a 47-53, right? So
very, very close.
What was can you tell me what the difference in voting was?
It was less than 200 votes that we failed to kill the bond.
So the school district gets to yell, yay, we win, because we trounced upon the First Amendment. We made everybody do things our way. And the school district is going to get to go forward with a $23 million of debt. It gets to lay on. Now, $23 million where I come from is not a lot, right? We're in Arlington and Fort Worth. But for Waxahachie, that's substantial.
So it's a small town. We've already got $500 million in debt.
Oh, what's another 20? No big deal.
$500 million.
Right. And that's the way that worked. And so you're seeing this more and more, and you're going to see a few more challenges because now we're looking for it. There are counties that are doing this kind of thing. This is what the school district does. They say, we're going to set, and this was their excuse, this is their reasoning, we're going to set, for the convenience of the voters, we're going to put these polling sites at the locations of ISD properties. And then they say, oh, we have strange people showing up at our voting locations, so we have to have control of this, so we're going to set up these speech cages. So to keep them away from our kids because we have dangerous issues. And we have to do this. Now, of course, when I ask the question, don't you send out kindergartners into moving cars to get in their cars with their parents? And they go, maybe, so it's just a facade. And they say, well, we've had dangerous situations at schools. So you're going to use school shootings, which are totally different from this, to stop the First Amendment where you've never, ever seen, and I think nationwide, we've never seen a problem.
Well, the really interesting part during all this is we started a poll on the Nextdoor site asking, do you think that schools should be polling locations, especially since, any voter who has not passed a background check can just waltz right into your school and vote among the children. Or you could have felons electioneering for campaigns out there. And the overwhelming response, over 80% so far, has been to stop using schools as polling locations because of safety concerns.
With the numbers we're seeing, it seems like that'd be an obvious thing. The beautiful part, the evil villain, beautiful part of the Waxahachie ISD is they set it up so it only impacted this one election. Yeah. So there's no ongoing dispute, like in McKinney, they had an ordinance that needed to be dealt with. There's nothing really to deal with now. It's just a matter of the damages. And so it's an interesting case. So we're just today we just wanted to bring this to your attention. Look for these kinds of things in your city. We're going to be looking for lawsuits to be filed, and I will eagerly accept all of your emails about your county and what they're doing to ensure that the First Amendment is misused and infringed to benefit the few people that want to think that more public debt is better, or to help one side or the other. We don't want to squelch free speech. We want more free speech. We want transparent government. We want things done right. And so if you actually have a situation where you do need reasonable regulation, then set up your reasonable regulation. This is not reasonable regulation.
Yeah,
there's another one, I think it was with Finley, setting up your speech cage where it's not necessary, not used, and there's no chaos.
On the way out, yeah.
It's crazy talk, and so that shouldn't be done. And we welcome your feedback. Make sure to like us if you're watching us on YouTube and or on Facebook, and tell your friends, share with everybody. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.
Well, that's a wrap, folks, and we want to thank you for listening to the White Hat Law Show here with Warren Nord. To find out more about Warren, check him out at nordlaw.com. See you next time.